Are we done with Ja Morant?
By the way, I wouldn't be a report if I didn't ask. Ja's summer. What's the summer look like? How's he doing? How's he feeling? How ready is he?
I'm telling you guys right now, Ja Morant is coming for all the work this year. All of it. How soon they forget.
Man.
That's all we need.
Like how soon they forget. Oh, buddy.
No better source on the Ja Morant mindset.
How soon they forget.
That right there is Ja Morant's agent, Mike Miller. And about a week after he made that comment, Ja also posted this
Mike Miller's
on his
an agent?
Instagram story.
That kid disrespecting my boy 12, man. That kid disrespecting my boy 12.
It's clear that Morant feels forgotten by the league, and with the emergence of all the new young stars, one could argue that the NBA actually left him behind. Just 2 seasons ago before his suspension, Ja Morant was making his mark in the league in a way that only a handful of NBA players have ever done. He came into the league making a lot of noise right from the jump, but in 4 seasons, Ja was already an icon in the league. Not only was he filling the stat sheets, he was also filling up seats because when he's playing, he's a human highlight reel.
Opening round series, Morant. Oh! A jawbreaker!
You know what this reminds me of? This right here reminds me of the season Kevin Durant broke his foot and people essentially forgot who Kevin Durant was. And so many things happened within that one season that, not to say it was justified, but I see why people forgot who Kevin Durant was. For those who don't remember, Kevin Durant won the MVP in the 2013-14 NBA season. The very next season was the 2014-15 NBA season. And depending on who you talk to, this truly was a turning point in NBA history. Steph Curry emerged and the Warriors became a 67-win team. LeBron James went back to Cleveland. James Harden started his perennial streak of becoming an MVP candidate. Kawhi Leonard was starting to come into his own. And even on his own team, Russell Westbrook, because of the fact that Kevin Durant was injured, went crazy this season and I believe won the scoring title. Anthony Davis, I believe, had his come-out party. So when Kevin Durant came back the season after in 2016, yes, everyone still knew Kevin Durant was still that guy. However, compared to who he was thought to be the year before he got injured, after the year he won MVP, when he was unanimously the second best player in the league, was viewed as the clearly next guy up in the league, and then in all of a matter of a season, that notion right there just changes in front of everyone's eyes. It was crazy to see. And the reason why I bring that up is because I feel like with Ja Morant, I'm seeing a lot of those similar things. This past season, there were a lot of talks about the passing of the torch from the LeBrons, the Currys, and the KDs to the next generation. And in that season, Tyrese Halliburton emerged, right? Anthony Edwards emerged. Jason Tatum finally got his first ring. Luka averaged 34 points a game and made it to his first NBA Finals. Victor Wembanyama went crazy in his rookie season. All of this while Ja Morant wasn't playing. Like, he came back, but then he got injured. But long story short, it was a missed season for Ja Morant.
Avery Bradley with the deflection against Bang. Oh my God! What an incredible block!
In just his 3rd season, Ja Morant generated over 385 million views across all NBA social media platforms, which put him behind only LeBron and Steph Curry. That's the kind of gravity that Morant has, which is why huge brands like Nike were trying to make him the face of their brands. He was being talked about as the closest thing to prime Derrick Rose, which makes sense because of how electric he is.
And he was winning
But there was
too?
actually a time when his numbers were better than what Derrick Rose put up in his MVP campaign. And in that same season, he led the young Grizzlies to the 2nd spot in the West. So it wasn't just empty stats because he was impacting winning as well, while having fun with it.
It's a parade inside my city.
The OGs of the game were also impressed by the way he took over the league, and NBA legends were even comparing themselves to Morant because of the way he was dominating in the early years of his career and the way he was bridging the culture and the NBA.
There's no doubt he's the most entertaining and electrifying player there is in the league. I mean, if I had a chance to see one NBA game the whole year courtside, one NBA game, I would go see Ja Morant play.
Ja also showed that he's a player who rises to the occasion. In matchups with the NBA's best players, he showed up and showed out, whether it was LeBron, Curry, Kyrie, or KD. Ja hung with the best of them both in the regular season and in the playoffs. But as we know, Ja Morant's rise to the top came to a halt quickly after multiple off-the-court incidents, most notably him flashing a firearm on Instagram Live twice. And the toughest part about his career being put on pause due to the suspension and the shoulder injury is that when things began to slow down for Ja, the league started to evolve at a historically fast pace.
Yup.
The 2023-24 NBA season will be remembered as the year in which the torch was passed on to the next generation. The quote-unquote next face of the league was a huge topic of discussion throughout the season, but Ja Morant's name was not a part of it.
I would say Shea, Ant-Man. You know, I feel like those are two of the guys, that can continue the torch.
You know who's really forgotten in these conversations is Zion. It's Zion. Because remember the hype Zion had going into his draft? Remember the numbers Zion was putting up? Remember the moments Zion had? Because it's not like Zion isn't an extremely entertaining player to watch. No, he had some of the craziest dunks I've ever seen. I still remember his first game in the league. I believe it was against the Spurs. He had like 3 threes. Everyone was going crazy. Yet when it comes to these discussions that we're having in terms of being the next face of the league, at the very least, Ja Morant, like we can still talk about, Ja Morant's gonna have a comeback season. I feel like a lot of people, and I don't blame them, have really given up on Zion, man. Me personally, he got one more season out of me. I feel like he did have his healthiest season this past season. He suffered a freak injury later in the season that sidelined him for the rest of the playoffs. And even in that game, he was going insane. But yeah, he got one more season out of me.
After I'm done, after Steph, KD,
When you look to the future, the guys that are ready to take the mantle, the kind of young bloods that we're going to look at, he brought up your name, he brought up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Your thoughts about that?
I think that's dope because I think he's exactly right. Me and Shai and Luka for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
You
100%.
want it.
What's crazy though is that before these guys were even mentioned, it was clear who the next face of the league was, and there was really no question that it was Ja Morant.
The most marketable guy in our league, the face of our league going forward. So many kids are inspired by what he does.
you just think he's a new face?
Of the league? Yeah, for sure.
But all that changed because Ja Morant wasn't on the court this season, and therefore he couldn't insert his name in that conversation. This past season...
Real quick, I just want to shout out the 2018 NBA draft because looking back at that time, I don't think anyone thought that draft class was going to be as good as it became. For those who don't know the names that came out of the 2018 NBA draft, Luka, SGA, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges came from this draft, Triple J came from this draft, Trae Young came from this draft, and even the latter names I can bring up like Robert Williams, Miles Bridges, Gary Trent Jr., Anthony Simons came from this draft. But the way people were talking about the 2017 NBA draft class, especially after how those rookies played after their rookie season, the way people were hyping up the 2019 draft class with the guys from Duke coming out with RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish, and Zion, and obviously Ja Morant being who Ja Morant was. Like, looking back, correct me if I'm wrong, I swear most people were higher on the 2017 NBA draft and the 2019 NBA draft more than 2018. But looking back, man, the names to come out of that draft is insane.
Also the first time since 2010 where we saw 2 conference finals matchups that did not include Curry, LeBron, or Kevin Durant.
Crazy.
Instead, it was filled with young stars like Anthony Edwards, Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, and Tyrese Halliburton. Guys who were Morant's peers, and for some of them, he was clearly ahead of them before the suspension. Just for perspective, when Ja Morant played his last game before the suspension, the Timberwolves were an 8th seed that went on to lose 4-1 to Denver. This year, they made it to the conference finals, and many are crowning Anthony Edwards as the face of the next generation of basketball, which is a position that previously belonged to Ja Morant. Just a few seasons ago, Ja Morant sent them home in the first round. Now he has to sit around and listen to this.
Guess who's in front of him? Anthony Edwards, a guy that went set right in his seat.
At the time of the suspension, Jokic and the Nuggets were also still without a championship, but today, they, along with Boston, look like the teams to beat in the league. So the league has actually had 2 NBA champions since the whole Ja Morant incident. And in that same season that Ja Morant had his gun incident, the Oklahoma City Thunder were a 10th seed that didn't make the playoffs, and right behind them was Dallas at the 11th spot. But both teams just came from the playoffs, and Dallas specifically just came from the finals. And moving on, Victor Wembanyama was yet to make his NBA debut, and guys like Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brunson, and SGA were still climbing up the ranks and really solidifying themselves as legit superstars in the league. Right now, all of them are all NBA caliber players, with Shai being an MVP candidate, Halliburton is an Olympian, and Brunson is the king of New York.
I am so excited to see the point guard rankings and conversations this upcoming season, specifically because Ja Morant is coming back. And specifically because Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton had the seasons that they had, right? Like, talking about guys who made leaps to being all-NBA caliber guards. I personally feel like, depending on who you talk to, it's on some, man, y'all really forgot about who Ja was? Or, Jalen Brunson really just took a different leap. Tyrese Halliburton really just took a different leap to where, respect to Ja. Ja is cool. But Reese and Jalen Brunson are better than Ja Morant now. Like, just facts. It's going to be very, very interesting to see the point guard race this upcoming season, man.
That's how much the league has changed since Ja Morant played a full season. He was ahead of all these guys, but now when he returns, he'll be playing catch up with them. But with his level of talent, there's no doubt that Ja Morant will continue to make noise after he returns. And as you saw in the intro, he now has newfound motivation because of all the time he's been forced to take off. But what he can't guarantee is whether he'll get back the opportunities that he missed out on. Take for example Team USA. If Ja had played a minimum of 50 games this season, there's a big chance that he would have been selected for the Team USA roster in the Olympics over Tyrese Halliburton. And that's not a knock on Tyrese, but Ja was a second-team All-NBA player the last time we saw him, which suggests that he was among the top 10 to 15 best players in the league. In addition to being a superstar and a top 10 to 15 player in the league, Ja Morant also had the rare opportunity of having a great young team around him. That Memphis Grizzlies team from 2 seasons ago was a defensive monster of a unit, both on the perimeter with Dillon Brooks and in the paint with Jaren Jackson, Brandon Clark, and Steven Adams. In the 2022,
what I do want to see from Ja Morant this next upcoming season is not just a reminder of who Ja is. I really want Ja to show me something that we haven't seen from him yet. Whether that's a way improved 3-ball, whether that's a leap defensively, whether that's a leap in playmaking. I need to see some sort of improvement with Ja because of the fact that, Ja Morant is still one of the younger players in the league.
2023 season, they had the second highest defensive rating in the NBA, but in this past season, they fell all the way to 12th. Defensive rating and winning go hand in hand, and that's exactly why Ja and the Grizzlies were able to have some good playoff runs. Just 2 years ago, they were going head-to-head with the Golden State Warriors and holding their own before Ja got injured. The Warriors went on to win the NBA championship, but the gap between them and the Grizzlies really wasn't big at that time, and they were the 5th youngest team in the league at that time. Today, the Grizzlies look completely different, and the many players that gave them the depth that they had aren't even on the team anymore. And one of the best things about that team was their chemistry, which you can't really force or put together in one season. So because of all the changes, when Ja returns, he'll also have to rebuild that chemistry with his teammates. All that to say that the window of opportunity that Ja Morant had before the suspension was pretty rare, and now it's much smaller than it was. Especially because you never really know how long explosive players like Morant can dominate for. But hopefully Ja will return as himself, and although it might be an uphill climb back to the top of the competitive West, we know that he has the talent to do it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that Ja will return and be a top point guard on a winning team? Or will all that he's gone through cause him to take a step back in his progression?
I am definitely high on Ja Morant for this upcoming season. I do think this is going to be a revenge season upcoming for him. And I really do hope that missed season that he had is just going to be a season that we look on and just honestly laugh at. Because Ja Morant is box office. I think he definitely has future face of the league potential, at the very least from a marketing perspective, even if he doesn't reach the heights of best player in the league. And I like his shoes. But with that being said, links to Man Like Z's video will be in the description down below. And I'm going to catch you on the next one. Peace.